Thank you very much. I have two questions. The first question is that when you speak about the common or shared morality or ethics, does that imply that you believe in the commensurability of different traditions of moralities and ethics?
Do I believe in what? Sorry.
Commensurability. They are commensurable to each other.
They are
commensurable to each other. So they can talk to each other. They have this shared ground with each other.
Who?
The different traditions, for example, the Islamic traditions and Christianity traditions. Do you believe that there is a substantive? Because I think the problem is more of at which level you're talking about. If we're talking about a very abstract level, it's quite easy. For example, you pick up the freedom of expression example. I'm not saying that I'm in favor of the Chinese government's attitudes or behavior towards this freedom of expression issue, but for example, I recently...
You're not saying that?
Yeah, sure, definitely.
You're not?
I'm not.
Okay,
I'm not.
I'm happy.
But there is a difference between the idea of freedom of expression between different traditions, I guess. For example, recently the former Prime Minister, Lady Thatcher, died, and as a Chinese, I saw on the TV that people in Scotland and in northern part of England protested and celebrated her death. I wouldn't think that's possible in a Chinese context, even if the legal rights of freedom of expression is given. I wouldn't think the Chinese people would criticize or celebrate a prominent leader's death in the way that the British people did in the past few weeks. So in that sense, I'm not quite convinced that different traditions of ethics can ultimately be based on same ground, which is quite substantive and contextual. And the second question and second point is that I appreciate the point that you say it's a virtue that would be modest with our own views, with our own ethics. But wouldn't that point be better directed at, in a sense, colonizers or Europeans, rather than to the colonized or people in other part of the world who have shaken their beliefs in their indigenous, in their original traditions of ethics. And they are not arrogant, but basically lost their confidence in their own traditions. So I think in that situation, it's better to talk about confidence rather than modesty of our own traditional ethics. Thank you.
Thank you so much for these two questions. The first one is a very important one. Both are, by the way. But the first one is important because I think that when it comes to essential values about the fact that we should advocate and we should protect freedom of expression and the right to express your mind in political terms, in philosophical terms, this is a principles that I would promote everywhere. Now, what you are saying is our rights sometimes are also dealing with specific cultural attitude and understanding. My point and what I was saying when I was even when I was supporting the Tibetan for 25 years, I was not welcome in China, and the embassy in Switzerland told me this, so avoid going there. By saying, what I heard by some people is saying that in the name of our culture, we don't do this. I say, I'm sorry. I wouldn't accept your culture preventing me from speaking my mind. I don't think that this is cultural. Now, what you are saying here is that there is the legal framework that we have to protect, and then within this, there are things that have to do with decency, with culture, the way you deal with this. And I think that this is where it's important to understand. For example, in the global South, and especially in Asia and Africa and the Middle East, for example, in religious issues, it's rare to laugh at people or religious people, but it's not thinkable to laugh at religion and values and principles, and you don't do this. We had a discussion about laughing, about our people say, Are you laughing? When you laugh at Muslims, it's as if you laugh at Islam, and it's not the same. So this sense of humor here is different. Sense of humor is different, and the way you react to death. For example, I think that I can understand what you are saying, is that when someone passed away, just to celebrate his or her passing away, something that in many cultures, but I would say that even in Britain, some were shocked. It's not only cultural, it's not all the British things that you can, okay? And I think that, I was even myself, tell you the truth, when Gaddafi was killed, I thought he was a tyrant. The way he was killed was not the right way. He should have been judged and treated with dignity. We don't deal people with... Saddam Hussein was someone that I didn't like. He had to be, the court should have done its work. But to kill him the way he was killed, the day of a Muslim festival in the morning with someone taking picture, that's not dignified. And I would say, anyone who is telling me, oh, this is culture, I would say, be careful, it might be the culture of some and not the culture of all. And if it's the culture of some and maybe of all, we might have to deal with an educational process here to deal with it. I said exactly the same, and I was criticized by many by saying, I stood up against some American Muslims when they celebrate with Americans the killing of Osama bin Laden. They were happy. Times Square, we had people saying, I'm sorry. If you can have someone judge him, don't celebrate his death. Just, if you can catch him, judge him, do that. But to tell us afterward that he was not armed and it was killed and people are celebrating, I'm sorry, I would never be happy when someone is killed. If he was wrong, if he was a tyrant, he should be judged and he should go to court. And this is something which is a process where we have maybe, and what I got from some Americans is that they were very happy with what I said. I said this was not the right way to do things. So today, the way we dehumanize even terrorists, the way today that in some parts of the world, in our industrialized and civilized societies, as we call ourselves, we have people in jail, solitary confinement for years with nobody. This is intellectual torture. No one can tell me this is part of our culture. It's not American culture, it's politics and unacceptable. So sometimes we have to resist to this. And sometimes we have to accept that, a sense of decency, we don't do this. And you will find some people who have exactly the same sense of decency. The second question that we had was about, sorry, what's the second one?
I think the point about being modest.
Yes. So just one thing that I don't think so. I think that modesty is for all the people. And, the modesty that you have with your own values, you can only be modest with your own values when you are confident. So it's a conditioned confidence of what I call modesty. And I would say, yes, it's important in Europe, but I would say it's important in China, as it's important in Africa. It's important everywhere. Be very careful of the arrogance of the victims. Arrogance is not only with the colonizers. Sometimes the victims are arrogant because they are victims. So they have the arrogance of the victims, say, look, what you did to us, and this is, It's very easy to put yourself on the right side of history when you are victims, or you perceive yourself as victims. You want an example? George W. Bush. He said, we are the victims of their attacks, and he transformed this. And African people, very often they use this by nurturing the victim mentality, and then you are not modest with your values, you end up being arrogant. Arrogance has nothing to do with you being the victims or being the oppressor. It has to do with a mindset, the understanding, a relationship between yourself and your own values. This is the way I would put it.